Hello, you little demons. Jules here for WhatCulture.com, back again with another episode of the awesomely named and awfully hosted Choose Your Own Adventure, the weekly medieval themed format where I, the crown jewels of WhatCulture.com, take a list chosen by you. Yes, you, the person who is sitting here contemplating the joys in life that can only be described as a warm, hot chocolate. I'm going out for coffee in a minute, and I think I'm going to get one. It's just been on my brain ever since I woke up this morning. I want a hot chocolate. I'm having a hot chocolate. Don't you try and stop me. Yes, you get to decide what list I dole out to you each and every week, and this week we have none other to thank than Tablan 1415 Tablan for their suggestion of video game DLCs that were better than the game itself. And it's a bit of a weird one, this, isn't it? Because when you buy a video game, you expect the vanilla experience to be the best one, but then along comes these paid-for extra bits of content, and they just piss all over it. But the piss isn't actually piss. It's actually lovely golden caramel syrup going onto the vanilla, making it a better sundae for all. I do not want to imagine where the caramel source of this metaphor is coming out of. We're moving on. Because some of these DLCs felt like epilogues to games that actually felt unfinished, or expansions that give the game an entire new life, meaning that the DLCs we're chatting about today aren't just essential but superior to what came before. So let's have a chat about it. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 video game DLCs better than the main game. And you know the drill by now. Put your suggestions for next week's episode down in the comment section below. Get in there early before anyone else. You know what they're like. Oh yeah, let's get on with the list. Number 8, Awakened, Dead Space 3. Now, after 2 terrific predecessors, Dead Space 3 was yet another threequel that couldn't quite deliver the goods, unmooring the series' deft balance of action and suspense for a defanged, less horrific experience packed with rather disgusting microtransactions. If you were being generous, you would call it competent. If you were being mean, you'd call it greasy and unwanted. But either way, there was a deep hole in our hearts for something to come along and plug that Dead Space 3 experience. And what Awakening did was come along and not only give you a new piece of body to fill up that hole, but it turned out that was a writhing mass of tentacles because it was terrifying as well. Just over a year later, the Awakened DLC was released, which effectively functioned as a 90-minute epilogue to the main story, resolving the fate of protagonist Isaac Clarke while also laying the ground for future adventures, which, sadly, per Dead Space 3's disappointing sales, never came to pass. Even with its frustrating cliffhanger ending and short length, Awakened is a hyper-concentrated return to genuine survival horror, emphasizing the claustrophobia which felt so lacking in the actual main game. If you've ever felt that Dead Space 3 was like the corporate obligation sequel that they had to make, which, let's face it, it totally was, the DLC feels like Visceral Games actually cutting loose and just going, you know what, we're done with that now, let's tell our side of the story. And what a story it was. Number 7, Far Harbor Fallout 4. Now, it would be absurd to say that Fallout 4 is a bad game in any way, but that just highlights how good Far Harbor was as a DLC expansion, because what it did was it came along and just was like, hey, friends, you want choice? Let's have some fun. Let's talk, baby. The third of the game's 6 DLC expansions, Far Harbor is largely accepted to be the best of the bunch, and if we're being honest with ourselves, is a refined distillation of everything that made the Fallout franchise great in the first place, from its gorgeously atmospheric and expansive new island setting to its colourful cast of characters and array of quests, which prove more creative and enthralling than Fallout 4's main quest line. This truly is a DLC that feels more Fallout than the base game. It's basically like Bethesda listened to all of the critical feedback that fans gave of the Fallout 4 main game and we're just like, yeah, you know what, you're totally right. Here, have some spooky, creepy creatures, have some great quest lines, and have some fun guns too. Have at ya. Go on, this one's on us. Except it's not, you'll have to pay for it. Cheeky Bethesda. The choices really feel like they actually have weight and matter here, and though Bethesda somewhat cheekily raised the game's season pass price to accommodate how big the DLC ended up being, the fit-to-burst end product, well, it really speaks for itself. Number 6, Revelations, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. Now, there's no nice way to say this. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 was a big disappointment. That is me being generous to it. If I was to speak my actual truth, then I would say that it was a skipfire. It was a colossal step down from its rather terrific predecessor, and the sequel felt far too much like a generic action game that got rid of much of the series' signature personality in the process. Neither the story nor most of the characters make much of a dent. The environments are bland and the stealth gameplay is hot garbage. Really, it's only the combat that's propping this thing up, and fans haven't even had a new mainline Castlevania game in the near decade since to wash the taste out of their mouths. But this is why the Revelations DLC is so brilliant, because what it did was it was like, oh man, those stealth sections, we really bungled our whiz here. We dropped the pooch and then kicked the pooch in the face, and the pooch went flying through the pane glass windows of your mum's house. It was bad times. What we're going to do is get rid of them. We're going to put them behind the house in the shed alongside the broken glass now. We're done with that, and instead we're going to focus on Alucard and how much he just kicks ass. Here we got more intense and challenging combat, and admittedly it was only 3 hours long, but it was a very nice palate cleanser for the, stodgy main campaign. If Lords of Shadow 2 was a disappointing letdown, Revelations was a much-needed burst of light that released just a month later. Number 5, Bloodline, Watch Dogs Legion. Now here's the thing, Watch Dogs Legion, I really, really wanted to love this game because it's got such a lovely gimmick of just being able to take control of anyone, and those characters have individual personalities, and yes, I wanted to play as an old granny and a statue. But, unfortunately, outside of that gimmick, boring. So boring. But thankfully, we got the Bloodline DLC, which was a prequel to Legion revolving around the original Watch Dogs protagonist Aiden Pearce and Watch Dogs 2 supporting character Wrench. Though clocking in at less than half the length of the main campaign, Bloodline is a testament to both the power of brevity and releasing a game with an actual identifiable protagonist. While nobody's going to sit here and pretend that Aiden Pearce is an all-timer video game hero, the specificity of centering a story around him, compared to the basically endless array of recruitable NPCs in the main game, made it more immediately engaging. The dynamic between Aiden and Wrench is fun, and that, at its core concept, is what gaming should be about, because while the main game was fun just pissing about as these NPCs, it is much more fun to have characters that you can connect to and actually have a story revolving around. So yes, even though the central gimmick was good, this was delivered better and didn't use it. Number 4, War of the Chosen XCOM 2. Oh dear me, it's Jules with his little greasy rat hands again. He's rubbing them together because we're talking about another game that he cannot shut up about. It is XCOM 2, it's War of the Chosen. I don't even need a script to tell you how good this DLC is. It is phenomenal. But it's also the bullet point at the end of the statement, this game hates you. And I can't explain why I find that so fun. It's like going up to a Dark Souls player and being like, don't you find falling off into the abyss a million times and getting stabbed in the back by an enemy you didn't see annoying? And you go, yeah, I do, but I will go back to it again and again and again, because what if I'm the one stabbing that person in the back? That's how it works. It's a chain of pain, and you just need to be at the very back or front. I can't tell where this metaphor is going with this, but still, XCOM War of the Chosen is phenomenal. It is difficult, it is brutally challenging, it is relentless with its time constraints that it's got on there, and the new assassin characters, the Chosen that come down and absolutely obliterate your team in seconds. I hate it, I love it, again, I hate it, but love it again. I love it. I just can't express to you how much I love this game. It's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant standalone DLC as well. Number 3, The Kaito Files, Lost Judgement. Now, Lost Judgement is a highly entertaining game in its own right, albeit one that falls a little shy of the original Judgement in both the storytelling and especially the pacing stakes. But the next year, the Kaito Files DLC was released, a comparatively bite-sized 6-hour standalone mini-campaign in which players control Yagami's partner Kaito, who, on the strength of this DLC, should probably lead his own full-fat game. Now, while some might decry the DLC's lack of side missions and distractions, things to do, there is actually a benefit to this. The game is streamlined. It keeps the player on track and therefore more emotionally invested in the story that's playing out in front of them. Even the most die-hard fans of the Yakuza series will surely concede that its verbose, molasses-slow storytelling clip can get exhausting after a while, and so playing a like-minded experience with the courtesy to wrap it all up in time that it'll take to watch a single season of TV, well, that's downright refreshing. Also, it's just got one of the best and most memorable final boss fights ever. It's fantastic. Number 2, Hivebusters, Gears 5. Now here's the thing, Gears 5 was a pretty good game. And you know what? Pretty good just doesn't cut it when it comes to Gears. You need it to be phenomenal. It needs to be a console seller. Pretty good is just like, yeah, fine, I'll play it if I've got nothing else to play, and that is not what we want. But the weird thing is that you can't really critique where they went wrong. The combat is good, the characters, mainly they're kind of annoying sometimes, but then again, so were the original cast, if we're being honest. So where did it all go wrong? Well, it played it just a bit too safe for my liking. It never felt like it was pushing the actual franchise forward and was just like, yeah, we're happy to rest on these laurels. But then the Hivebusters DLC came out, and that, my friends, that was fun. That moved the needle. This was a single-player campaign focused on 3 characters from Gears 5's Escape multiplayer mode, Lani, Keegan, and Mac. The 3-hour campaign cleaves away all the fat from the main game's more bloated, unevenly paced story mode and tossed the open-world gumph to the wayside to focus on tight, claustrophobic combat from start to finish. With its likeable central trio and extremely efficient throughline, this basically feels like an interactive Michael Bay movie in the best way possible. Big, bombastic, and breathlessly intense. Whereas Gears 5 maybe over-egged the pot with trying to push the open-world gimmick, here it was just like, no, none of that. Here's all the action that you actually came for. And most people who played it were like, thank you very much. And number 1, Mask of the Betrayer, Neverwinter Nights 2. Though Neverwinter Nights 2 was generally well received by critics, the fan response was decidedly less enthusiastic, with many harbouring outright disdain for the game's generic story, crushingly brutal length, art style, camera, animations, UI, and worst of all, its maddening number of glitches. But the Mask of the Betrayer DLC, though, by comparison, it is a pure chef kiss experience, my friend. Though it's somewhat unavoidably harangued by some of the same technical issues as its predecessor, the story is effortlessly superior and scarcely connected to the main game, thankfully. The pacing also rocks, and it's got killer dungeon design, all while clocking in at just a fraction of Neverwinter Nights 2's length. And best of all, you don't even need to have played the main game to understand what's going on here. It is completely separate and all the better for it. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy Neverwinter Nights 2. I had a blast with that game, in all honesty, but you had to learn to love it. Here, though, I loved to learn to love to learn to love to live again. My brain broke. I love this DLC. And there we go, my friends. Those were 8 video game DLCs better than the main game. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below, as well as your suggestions for next week's episode. I love reading all your comments, so please, thank you very much. If you want to follow me on the social medias along with Dan, you can do so over here. Thank you very much for following us over there too. And if you want to swing by the Future Game Show or FGS, where I do all of my gaming content going forward, that would mean a ton to yours truly, the humble egg daddy over here. But before I go, my friend, there is one DLC that I know above all else is absolutely amazing, and that is the power of positivity. And the best part is, you don't even have to pay for it. It's free. Just be kind to yourself, and you will find that the main game campaign, aka your overall life, will get better as a result. Treat yourself with kindness. Treat yourself with love, because you bloody well deserve the best things in life, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise. You are a massive ledge, and I want you to go out there and smash it today. I believe in you. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.